How does the United States exercise its control over its nuclear and other strategic forces in a crisis that could happen quickly and take many forms? 2 words: Doomsday plane. The E-6B Mercury has been called the Pentagon's deadliest aircraft, even though it doesn't carry any weapons. Sounds impossible. US scientists and engineers have demonstrated time and time again that impossible is simply another word for challenge, and that's a word the US military never backs down from. America has developed a highly advanced backup system of airborne command and control known as the National Emergency Airborne Command Post, NEACP. This is a fleet of aircraft that are based on commercial airliners such as the Boeing 707 and 747. These are then stripped out and radically modified to include high-tech communications, tracking, and intelligence-gathering equipment. They can take to the air and operate for hours, days if necessary, and provide a vast range of global communications capability in the event of a fast-moving crisis. Some have the capacity to pass on orders to launch nuclear missiles and even to independently launch the missiles themselves. These aircraft have, somewhat melodramatically, been nicknamed the Doomsday planes. But how are these planes different from standard military aircraft? There are several types of airborne command and control aircraft that provide emergency coverage in a crisis, all with slightly different levels and types of capability. Air Force One is the President of the United States' personal jet. It is fitted with a range of highly classified defense and communications gear, allowing the President and his key staff to be moved quickly and safely away from the crisis area, while still remaining fully in charge of developing situations and able to authorize all necessary government military actions. It also has a reputation for its great food. The E-4B Night Watch has more command and control capabilities than Air Force One. It supports the President and Secretary of Defense and operates around 42 separate communications systems and allows them to conduct the full spectrum of military operations. It's been designed to be able to withstand a nuclear war environment and, with in-flight refueling, can be in the air for days. The E-3 AWACS Sentry is an early warning and control aircraft that provides a real-time picture of the battle space before and during a conflict, particularly including the movements of hostile aircraft hundreds of miles away. It's worth noting that, to the best of our knowledge, only one other nuclear-capable state operates a similar airborne command and control concept. The Russian Air Force operates, or it might now be operated, as the reliability and maintenance state of Russian aircraft is rarely clear, an Ilyushin Il-80 command and control aircraft with a broadly similar function to the E-4B. It probably qualifies as a doomsday aircraft. The Il-80 came into service in the 1980s and may have reached or passed its natural shelf life. The Russians are understood to be planning a replacement based on the Ilyushin Il-96 airliner. But our particular interest today is the E-6B Mercury. It has the capabilities of Air Force One and the E-4B, but has one further extra special feature. It can independently launch ballistic missiles from US Navy nuclear submarines. Let's dig into the details of this fascinating aircraft. The fleet of E-6B Mercury aircraft is the current generation of American Military Airborne Command Post. It was commissioned in the late 1980s as a replacement for its predecessor, the EC-130Q, which was a modified communications variant of the robust and flexible, but aging, C-130 Hercules transport aircraft. The EC-130Q had been operational in this role between 1963 and 1993, which is a long time for a critical, high-tech piece of strategic security infrastructure. The E-6 Model A was based on a modified Boeing 707-300 airframe. Production of the aircraft began at the Renton Boeing factory in December 1986, and the US Navy began putting it through trials from July 1988. It entered operational service in August 1989, right at the end of the Cold War. It has 2 roles. The first was similar to its predecessor, with a concept of TACAMO, take charge and move out. TACAMO meant the aircraft needed to be able to survive a nuclear warfare environment and provide critical encrypted communications between the key American decision-makers, such as the President, Vice President, and Secretary of Defense. The E-6 provides the airborne element of the TACAMO system. The second role is to act as an airborne strategic command post. The E-6 is fitted with an Airborne Launch Control System, ALCS. This allows it to directly launch intercontinental ballistic missiles. The E-6B is therefore designed to provide command and control of US nuclear forces in the event of a crisis, particularly if control from the ground was lost. The capabilities of the E-6 were designed to mirror those of the land-based command systems, hence the term looking glass or Operation Looking Glass given to the aircraft mission. This means that if the Global Operations Center at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska went down for any reason, the Looking Glass mission would seamlessly and instantly replace any lost command and control capacity. In its TACAMO role, it's designed to be as independent as possible, to avoid being reliant on other forces, units, or systems that might be taken out. In the worst case then, this is where an American president would be located during the first hours of a nuclear war, together with a selection of generals, intelligence analysts, and political advisors. This is why people tend to get a bit jumpy when they see these Doomsday aircraft taking off or in the air. On September 11, 2001, an E-4 was reportedly spotted circling over the White House. This triggered concern and conspiracy theories in equal amounts. 16 E-6 aircraft were produced and delivered between 1988 and 1992. The fleet of aircraft is based at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma and divided into 3 separate squadrons: VQ-3 Ironmen, VQ-4 Shadows, and VQ-7 Roughnecks. VQ-3 and VQ-4 are operational squadrons, while VQ-7 is the fleet replacement squadron in case of damages and losses. It provides for the training of the aircrew. The VQ-3 squadron was the first to receive the E-6, with VQ-4 receiving its aircraft in January 1991. The fleet can also operate on the West Coast, at Travis Air Force Base, and on the East Coast at Patuxent River in Maryland. In autumn 1991, at the request of the Navy, the name of the E-6 family was changed from Hermes, the Greek god of trade, to Mercury, the Roman god of commerce, communication, and travel. The E-6 has a normal crew size of 22, although this depends on the mission. It has a maximum speed of 610 miles per hour and a flight range of 7,600 miles. It can operate at an altitude of 40,000 feet and is fitted for in-flight refueling. It can fly for 10 hours with no refueling, for 28 hours with 1 refueling, and up to 72 hours, i.e. 3 days, with multiple refuelings. It cannot fly much longer than this, as many aspects of key maintenance can only be performed on land. Inevitably, with such a complex piece of equipment, the rapid speed of communication technology and the developing requirements of the military, a large program of modifications was initiated. This took the E-6A and upgraded it to a new model, the E-6B. This was a major reworking of the battle staff area, the flight deck, and other equipment. A new next-generation cockpit system was added to improve situational awareness. As the E-6B now took on its dual role, it soon became clear that there was less scope to train new crew on the job in the aircraft during missions. To improve the capacity to train crew members, the British Royal Air Force sold an E-3D Sentry aircraft back to America. It was refitted in order to recreate the communications equipment and environment within the E-6. This then allowed ground-based training to take place without encroaching on the requirements of operational missions. The first E-6B was delivered in December 1997, and the upgrading was completed for all aircraft by December 2006. Like many of the airborne command and control aircraft, the E-6 is hardened to protect itself from the electromagnetic pulse (EMP) that's generated following a nuclear detonation, or a lightning strike or a solar storm. The EMP is a sudden and powerful burst of electromagnetic energy that can knock out radio, communications equipment, electrical networks, computers, and electronic gear, potentially over hundreds of miles. The aircraft is also protected against cyber attack. To keep the fleet flying and up to date, regular modernization and maintenance activities are crucial, particularly as the airframe gets older. But why is it crucial for the US to have a Doomsday plane? What are some of the actual threats waiting on the horizon? There are many security threats in the world at present. China is threatening Taiwan, and Russian forces have thrust deep into Ukraine. Global terrorist organizations such as Islamic State and Al-Qaeda continue to pose serious threats to American and Western assets and governments, and the risk of a nuclear exchange has not receded. Russian President Vladimir Putin, as the Russian army struggles and suffers mightily in Ukraine, has several times made intentionally vague references to his nuclear forces. In June 2023, Russia deployed tactical nuclear weapons into Belarus, right up against the NATO members of Poland and the Baltic states. The world is ever more dangerous. In July 2023, President Joe Biden stressed that the threat from Russian nuclear weapons is real. The Boeing 707 airframe is old. It came into service in the late 1950s. The E-6 itself came into service at the end of the 1980s. There are perhaps only so many upgrades that can be squeezed in. Regular maintenance is essential, and stress corrosion cracks have been detected during routine checkups of the E6. Other inevitable risks include wear and tear on engines, metal fatigue, and obsolescence of parts. A $110 million modification program recently awarded to Northrop Grumman will enhance the performance of the command and control capabilities. But like all military procurement processes, one system comes to an end and another is conceived. As the E6 system begins to come to the natural end of its life, there's much debate about what a replacement system should look like. It's crucial that any new system is introduced in a timely manner to allow an overlap in capability. The role of the E6B and its successors is very much a no-fail mission. The US Air Force is now understood to be looking at replacing 3 aircraft systems, the E4, the C-32, and the E6, in one combined program known as NEAT. But nothing is clear yet. It should not be automatically assumed that the replacement concept for the E6 will be a similar Boeing-based air system. Other possibilities might emerge as America analyzes what type of threats it might face over the next 30 years, and Congress considers what budget and priorities can be allocated to the military if it's decided that an airborne command and control role is still necessary in the 2020s and beyond. Technology, capabilities, and demands have increased. Types of threat have diversified. The potential global battle spaces have become more complex, and the demands on aircraft and crew have increased. Perhaps remote-piloted aircraft might provide a solution. Could they take on part or all of the mission requirement? Maybe the capabilities and roles of E4 and E6 aircraft could be merged into one system, or even fitted into the C-32 version of the Boeing 757 intercontinental liner. Other reports suggest that a version of the C-130, the C-130J Super Hercules, might be used for testing new systems for the TACAMO role. Inevitably, most of the debate and decisions will be shrouded in secrecy. But one thing is clear: the ability to know what's going on and to be able to communicate and to respond in a complex and fast-developing crisis is absolutely crucial for the United States and her allies. For the best part of 40 years, the E-6 Mercury squadrons have been a vital part of America's command and control system, ready to respond to major national and global crises, up to and including nuclear war. The E-6 provides a backup in the event that normal land-based command and control systems have been rendered ineffective. Its dual-role capability to provide survivable communications and to act as an airborne command post gives it unique global flexibility and capability. For reasons of national security, the US government is loath to acknowledge the existence and activities of the E-6, and rarely talks in any sort of detail about the capabilities and role of the E-6 and the other Doomsday aircraft. Now in 2023, the commanders and crews of the E-6 Mercury continue to train and prepare for something they must surely hope they never have to do: to launch an LGM-30G Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile. It's a curious thought to ponder, that the E-6 will be considered to have successfully completed its mission if it never has to be used in anger at all. This must surely be the way we should think of all Doomsday aircraft. But what do you think? Does America really need its Doomsday plane? If so, what do you think is the biggest current threat that might make the US use it? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more military analysis from military experts.